The Switch Online and greater Nintendo community is buzzing once again, as Nintendo is delivering on the additions of a handful of N64 games that were strategically scheduled for rollouts throughout the year. Myself and many others were ambushed by a massive leak rumored to be connected to a potential Game Boy Advance library being the next in queue for Nintendo Switch Online. The leak in question shows off what potentially is the official GBA emulator that will be used for NSO. The files have been leaked onto 4chan, including a Nintendo-developed emulator codenamed Sloop and a Game Boy emulator codenamed Hyoko, both developed by Nintendo of Europe's research and development team, the group responsible for almost all of the emulation that Nintendo has done in recent times, like the emulation for the classic NES and SNES mini consoles, as well as the emulation seen in Super Mario 3D All-Stars. And while this video is not solely to be on the prospect of Game Boy and GBA coming to NSO in September, which it likely would have anyway, it's been roughly a year to the day since I did my N64 Online lineup predictions. So, in a timely coincidence, I think it's a perfect time to discuss which games that I think will be available at launch for Game Boy Advance Online. Let's talk about it. Now, in my N64 video, I kept the list down to 20 games, as that was the principal set when the NES and SNES libraries launched for the service, and I'm going to keep that mark for this video just for consistency. Another thing to point out is that the GBA is home to a lot of remakes and licensed games due to the console's nature. That being said, I'm going to keep licensed IP titles off for understandable reasons, and I'll be keeping the remakes to a minimum. And of course, no flagship Pokemon titles, as TCPI is weird with that thing, and with the rate that they remake the games, it almost makes sense as to why they shy away from simple re-releases. So, without further ado, let's jump into the list. At the top of my list, I have Mario Kart Super Circuit. The first handheld installment in the franchise, the critically acclaimed title is a no-brainer as it remains the best-selling non-Pokemon title for the GBA. Next, I have The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. GBA's flagship Zelda title received critical acclaim, praised for continuing the legacy of classic Zelda gameplay and the whimsical artistic direction of Wind Waker. The music of the game, on par with the rest of the series, was spectacular as well, featuring some of the highest quality tunes to ever come out of the Game Boy Advance. Next, my personal favorite, Metroid Fusion. More linear and shorter than most, Fusion was universally acclaimed for its above-average controls, gameplay, graphics, and music. One of the series' best, it would be a perfect time for Fusion to make an appearance on the Switch, as Metroid Dread is chronologically the game's direct sequel. The sole Pokemon game on this list for variety reasons, I have Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. Pokemon Pinball is the ideal handheld time waster that thoroughly fleshes out the ideas developed in the original Pokemon Pinball for the Game Boy. The multitude of the game modes really expands the player retention and makes it somewhat addicting at times. Featured on the Wii U GBA Virtual Console, it's not a stretch to see this at launch. Unique for its Metroidvania gameplay, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror is the Pink Puffball's mainline installment on the GBA. The game also features multiplayer, which begs into question how in-depth a multiplayer feature within GBA Online will be when it arrives. Now that we covered the main games from Nintendo's starting five, let's talk about the rest. Starting with Golden Sun and its sequel Golden Sun: The Lost Age. One of Nintendo's lost IPs, the two original Golden Sun titles on the GBA are some of the best to grace the system. Cult classics amongst GBA fans, the two FRPGs have received a positive reception by critics for its vibrant graphics, high-quality sound, and varied, refined RPG gameplay, with particular optimism on the battle aspect, with sales figures exceeding 1 million in the United States and Japan. Up next is F-Zero Maximum Velocity, one of the two GBA launch titles that made my cut. It's also the series' first of two handheld installments. Taking place 25 years after F-Zero and another Grand Prix, the game features the classic F-Zero gameplay with an unfamiliar crew of characters. Maximum Velocity was one of the 10 Game Boy Advance games released to Nintendo 3DS's Ambassador program, as well as being released on the Wii U Virtual Console. Fire Emblem, or rather Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, was the series' first debut in the West, following the inclusion of Marth and Roy in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Blazing Blade's inclusion in the GBA lineup is important, as it marks the international start to what has become a very prominent series for Nintendo as localization continued since. Speaking of, Advance Wars is eventually coming to the Switch in a remake compilation paired with its sequel. With that in mind, I think having the first Advance Wars on GBA Online would be great promotion for the remakes, as well as a fair addition to the lineup, as Advance Wars is one of the cult classics of the system that opened up the market for similar turn-based strategy games like Fire Emblem on handhelds. An underrated platformer from Game Freak that was a gem on the GBA, Drill Dozer was one of the only 2 Game Boy Advance games to include force feedback, with a gameplay focus around a rush of enemies and the rumble support. The game never localized to Europe until 2016 on their eShop, and despite the game releasing in 2006, it has rarely been heard from since, with the most notable reference being an assist trophy in Smash. It's definitely time to revisit. Now, I have a couple reaches here, but hear me out. Sonic Advance. Look, we just got the Genesis Online library, and Sonic 2 was one of the launch titles for it. Sonic Advance was in the top 25 of the best-selling games for the GBA and was a big release for the franchise, marking the first Sonic title launched on a Nintendo console alongside Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and produced in commemoration for the series' 10th anniversary. The game was short and sweet, unique in style, and a commercial success, praised for its presentation and new gameplay aspects. Similarly, Castlevania Bloodlines is on the Genesis Online library, so we should be able to reason to get Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Although Circle of the Moon was a North American launch title for the system, and although there is already the Castlevania Advance Collection on the Switch containing both games and more, Aria of Sorrow is considered the highest regard of the bunch for the GBA, and was a huge commercial success in the US, with many comparing it to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, arguably the best game in the Castlevania series. Swinging back to Mario, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga is also a must on this list of 20, the third RPG game in the Mario series following Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario. Despite the game being remade for the 3DS in 2017, the original was a fun twist on the Mario lore and characters, putting emphasis on comedy and humor, which turn-based system stood out compared to its competitors and was praised by critics. Similar to my reasoning for Fire Emblem, I think it's important to have historic representation for the first title to what would go on to be another fruitful subseries in the Mario multiverse. And staying on the subject, Mario Golf Advance Tour and Mario Tennis Power Tour are also included. At this point, it feels like an obligation, but with tennis and golf added to the N64's library, it's just a logical progression to include the sequels. Regardless of logic, both games were underrated releases in the series for their RPG and story mode elements. Then, there is Mario vs. Donkey Kong. The puzzle platformer acts as a spiritual successor to the original Donkey Kong series. Its pick-up-and-play functionality made it perfect for the GBA, and helped establish it as yet another conductive series for the Mario franchise. The last 3 to round it out are my wildcards. First is WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games. The debut of the WarioWare series, the now iconic blitz of minigames, is arguably one of the most important titles of the time period. The sheer number of minigames, its simplicity, and replay value made the game original and great, and would change the trajectory of the Wario character and his games from then on. Kirby Nightmare Dreamland is the only remake that I have making the cut. It was a difficult choice, but I eventually settled on Kirby because the game was a bestseller in the GBA's library and really polished and tweaked Kirby's Adventure into its premier version of itself, with the new minigames and multiplayer modes adding new replay value. And lastly, I have Kuru Kuru Kuruin. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. But the Switch's online libraries are never without some more foreign or obscure titles. But this game in particular stands out. As a launch title for the GBA, the puzzle game is regarded as one of the best on the system. The gameplay is simple but engulfing, and it has a learning curve that puts it head and shoulders above titles in its genre. Before we review and conclude, I definitely have some honorable mentions, which to be honest, are just games we'll eventually see added down the line anyways. First is Metroid Zero Mission, the remake of the original Metroid that really shines on the GBA. Astro Boy Omega Factor is a license cut that is regarded as one of the greatest GBA games. Gunstar Superheroes wouldn't be a stretch either, as the original Genesis title is on the Genesis Online library, and the GBA remaster is held to high praise as well. The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords would be an interesting addition, but I couldn't justify cracking the 20 because it is within a remake. Wario Land 4 and WarioWare Twisted were also commercially successful ventures for Wario on the Game Boy Advance. And of course, I am obligated to mention Mother 3. Now, we did just get Mother 1 and 2 on the SNES and NES libraries respectively, but as we all know, Mother 3 will likely never be officially localized, so we'd have to get over that hurdle first before the North American Switch Online service would ever host the elusive cult classic. And with that, those are the 20 plus games that I can potentially see constituting a Game Boy Advance Online lineup. Hopefully, these recent rumors hold a lot of weight and aren't just an extremely elaborate and well thought out hoax. With NES, SNES, and 64 games all here, it would make sense for Nintendo to take a handheld detour before even assessing the undertaking it would be for them to host 128-bit GameCube games on the platform. Without getting into the business of NSO, because I tend to rant about it, I want to know what games you would want to see on the hypothetical GBA Online opening day roster. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We are almost at 1,000 friends, and if you made it to the end of the video, I truly appreciate you. As always, take care, good game, and thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace.